Well, I'm an atheist myself, and basically my question is, how should atheist people react to, you know, when Christians say stuff like, bless you, and basically when they throw like religious stuff back at you? What should be the model of the behavior, of the atheist people? Should we get like offended by that, or when they say bless you, I'll pray for you and stuff like that?
I mean, to say like what should atheists do? Well, no, it's not that. I mean, everyone is an individual. Like, you have your own experiences leading up to that point. I can only say what my perspective is and how I approach it. Like, I will usually say thank you. Like, say if it happens at work, we work in cubicles, things like that. So if someone sneezes, there's anywhere from 12 to 20 people that heard it.
Right.
And so you'll hear maybe a random, bless you here and there. And so if I sneeze and someone says it, then I generally say thank you. And earlier this past year, I kind of I stopped saying thank you. I stopped saying anything back. I would just sneeze and I would say like, excuse me, or something like that. After I sneezed, even if someone said bless you, I would just say, pardon me, excuse me, something like that. And when someone else sneezed, I wouldn't say anything at all. And so over time, at least where I'm sitting, it's becoming less and less common for anyone to say bless you. I'm not saying that had anything to do with me. It's just, it doesn't seem to be a common thing too much anymore. But
my wife, Linnea, when somebody sneezes, will occasionally say, "You sneezed," and I acknowledged it. Which is really all that bless you means. And it's not always clear why sneezing gets singled out for special behavior. And we don't say anything when you fart.
I think it comes from like when people sneeze, there's like a common misbelief, like your heart stops for a second, and
right. So it's
got to be blessed, I guess, or something.
It's based on superstition, but like how you react to it depends on whether you really want to have a conversation about it at the moment. And if you are,
and it's not just.
And if you are,
it doesn't go to the. I'm sorry. It doesn't go to the such a particular thing as of bless you or something.
Mm-hmm.
There's many more things that So, I guess my question originally is, some religious people, they get offended when you throw the atheist stuff at them, so to speak.
So you're saying that they're saying bless you or I'll pray for you as a way of kind of being passive aggressive against you.
Well, yeah, and I mean, me personally, I don't really care because I know. I mean, to me, it's a nonsense. Whatever they might say about that, and but still, I've seen many people. They get offended at that. It's like, don't you dare say you're gonna pray for me because that stuff's not gonna work. And well, my question is basically, is that a right thing to do to get offended by that, or it's just? Should I just brush it off, or?
I mean, you can't necessarily help whether you feel offended. The question is whether you make an issue of it and act offended. I mean, some people do feel offended, and some people just don't care.
Mm-hmm.
I think when you are trying to consider how to react to it, a lot of it depends on context. For instance, if a person says, I'll pray for you, whether they meant any offense by it is very dependent on what the situation is. Like, they don't know that you're an atheist and you just said, I'm having trouble with my health, and they say, I'll pray for you. They probably think that it's a nice thing to say that will actually help you.
Right.
And in that kind of situation, if it's important to you that they understand that you don't like that, you could say something like, you could tell them you're an atheist, or a little more low-key, you could just say, hey, I don't really feel like being prayed for. I think I was just trying to talk about it, or something like that.
I mean, because that can happen, especially like say if someone that was close to you passes away and you post something on Facebook or something to that effect. You might have a lot of people saying, "Oh, I'm praying for you," or something like that, and their cultural equivalent of saying, you know, I'm thinking of you, or, you know, my condolences, or things of that sort. And so when
I have sympathy for you because you are probably sad right now. Like, that's a perfectly acceptable thing to be thinking, even though they expressed it wrong for you.
And even if you wanted to kind of talk about the point that you're atheist, if someone says, you know, I'm praying for you for whatever situation it happens to be, I mean, depending on how you approach it back, you can say, you know, I'm atheist, but I do appreciate your thoughts.
Right.
Or something to that effect. And
that's a very nice thing to say.
And I've said that to people in person. I've said that to people online when people that were close to me have passed away, and people have sent their condolences by text or by Facebook Messenger or just in person when I was at the service or something like that. And it's just, I understand that their heart, in their mind, they're helping. That this, in their mind, this is something comforting to say to another person, because that's the way they've been conditioned, that's the way they've been taught, and that's the way that they've probably received condolences throughout their lives as well. And so sometimes I just say, you know, thank you, and just keep it moving, depending on if I want to engage or not. But other times I'll say, yeah, just as simply, you know, hey, I'm an atheist, but I do appreciate your thoughts. That really means a lot to me.
Right, which brings the issue to the surface, but it doesn't make you look petty. Of course, there are other situations where maybe the other person knows you're an atheist, and they say stuff like, I'll pray for you, to take little digs at you. And when you're dealing with somebody...
they might say, you know, hey, I'll pray for you because you're in the dark and you're like a blind sheep or something like that, which is, some people, you know, they might look at it as basically being called, you know, hey, you're stupid. And, you know, I will pray for you or something. And I think it's somewhat adequate to maybe not, you know, throw a fit about it, but at least, you know, to let them know as, hey, you know what, it's basically telling me I'm not, you know.
If you are...
It's the same thing as calling me stupid. I don't appreciate that.
Yeah, I agree. That can be their intent sometimes. And if you're dealing with a person who's deliberately rude, you have a number of options. I mean, one of them is obviously to make sure privately that they know that that's not appreciated. I mean, this is an issue that is important in a lot of different environments, and that is explicitly setting your boundaries. And that is true whether it's in a work situation, somebody is inappropriately making sexual advances on somebody else. And it's also true if somebody is basically religiously harassing people. You know, you might want to ask, how would you feel if there was a Muslim saying something like, you know, I'll pray that Allah opens your eyes or something like that.
Exactly.
So you should, I mean, it's totally fair to tell somebody, hey, I think you're kind of being rude to me and I want you to cut it out. And if they know that... But
you see, in their eyes, it might not, they might not see it as them being rude. They might see, you know, they feel like it's an obligation.
They might not see...
They think that they sincerely doing the good thing for you, which is like praying, you know, and so it's kind of like, you know, you might get offended by that, but...
Yeah, I get that.
In the same way, it's sort of like you being offended at them being sincerely trying to be good to you, you know?
Right. They may not... They may feel like they're doing you a favor, but it isn't about whether they are correct or not, technically. It is about you stating what your preference is, and them either respecting it or not respecting it because they accept you on a human level. And if you are in a workplace environment and you've told them, I would like you not to do that, and they keep doing that, then it becomes an issue for the HR department, maybe. And you can talk to those people and say, this person is pestering me and I'd like some kind of conflict resolution. And if it's not in a work environment, if it's somebody you know personally, you usually are within your rights to threaten to cut off some of the communication that you have with that person, even if they're people who are directly related to you. You can say, look, you're not respecting what I told you are my wishes. you either change your attitude or I'm going to stop talking to you. It really depends on what kind of situation you're in and whether you can get away with not dealing with that person anymore. And if you can't, why not? And who can you escalate it to that will help when your boundaries are not being respected?
You know, I see. One situation where that the thing that you were talking about, when they know you're an atheist and they say very specifically to you, "Oh, well, I'm going to pray for you," or you know, I'm going to pray that God blesses you, or something like that. That's happened a few times when I do the Atheists Helping the Homeless out in here in Austin and down in San Antonio, where there may be someone that, of course, sees our atheist signs, things of that sort, and they make it a point to say, "Thank you so much, God bless you." You know, really stress that. And it's one thing that people come through the line and they'll just say "God bless you" as a synonym for "thank you." Essentially, that's what it boils down to. But it's sometimes an obvious difference when they, you know, really stress it to you. Like it's a little bit different on that side. And or I'll pray for the Lord to change your heart, stuff like that. And I usually, rather than being like, you know, confrontational, because we're trying to keep the line moving, and these are the people that we're trying to help, these patrons that are coming through the line, I usually say something like, "Well, that's an interesting perspective that you said. Well, you know, a couple weeks back or whatever else, I had someone that was Buddhist, and they said something similar, but they had a different way of going about it. So that's an interesting perspective that you have." And I say that to not only to let them know that other religions do indeed exist, but basically to put their religion that they just brought to the table like that on the same platform as all others. Basically, to
you're not special.
That's essentially what it's doing in a very subtle way. Is we're saying, "Oh well, you know, you're," because you know we have people that come through that say, you know, "Thank you for helping," you know, but you know you're going to hell or whatever else, which is an interesting thing. And I'll come back and say, we had a few Satanists or pagans that came through, and you know, they had a very different perspective as far as the work that we were doing. But I appreciate your perspective that you decided to show. And you know, some kind of look at me funny as they keep moving throughout the line. Some may or may not say something back. It just depends on the person. But I say that like
I might be in shock.
Well, yeah, like just to say, like, you know, how dare you compare me to this other religion that's obviously not true. Obviously, it's not true. You know, exactly. How dare you put me on this same level? But by the same token, well, it is on the same level to someone like me who's looking at religions as a whole, as this whole group. So I find that to be fairly effective, and I hope that it, you know, lets them think. And I usually don't have too many like repeat people that will come up and do that, you know, multiple weeks in a row. But I find that works decently well for people that, you know, I may not necessarily interact with again. They may not be back to the table, or, you know, I don't necessarily want to convert them right there at the table while we're doing our giveaway with hundreds of people in line. But it's an effective little thing to say that may make them think. They may just shrug it off, but it's an interesting little conversation that happens there, doing it something like that.
Yeah.
I see. Okay. Well, gentlemen, thank you very much for taking my call, and you guys are awesome. I started watching you on YouTube not so long ago, but your show is pretty cool. So you guys keep it up and spread the word, so to speak.
Thank you, Edward. It was good talking to you.
100 years, but yeah, thank you very much, guys.
All right,
no problem. Thank you.
Bye.